What's up, guys? It's Celeste, and this is today's Star Wars shirt, which I am wearing each day in preparation for Rogue One releasing. So I've been working on some of the other videos that I've been planning to make since I began this channel. Like, two of the first videos that I thought I was going to make were basically just me, like, explaining my gender and my sexuality. Like, I've said what they are. Like, I've said that I'm non-binary and aromantic asexual, but what that actually means, first of all, I think requires some explanation for people in general, but also, even if you know what those things are, like, they're both or all three kind of umbrella terms that exist on a spectrum. So there's some more like nuance and detail to those things that I'd like to talk about as far as like how I experience them. But I've kind of been putting it off because I haven't exactly decided or like figured out how exactly to talk about those things. Because I don't know if other people do this or not, but I have this tendency when I'm explaining things to try to like preemptively like account for all of the things that the other person might not understand or might like have different ideas about, or I just try to like account for what I expect their response to be, I guess. Which I think is kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, it does help sometimes when I'm trying to explain something to have some idea of what needs to be explained or like what the other person might not understand going in. But at the same time, it kind of makes me like overly anxious and like overly self-conscious about how I talk about things. But in this case, I think the difficulty is that things to do with identity, because they are things that each person experiences mostly internally, as far as like how they feel and like how they perceive their experience. And they're kind of abstract. It's kind of like you don't actually know like if what other people think of as your identity or their identity is really like similar to what yours is. Like, you can talk about it, but there's some level of like just like this gap of what you can never really know about whether the other person experiences things the same as you. But that just kind of makes it hard because like when you are trying to explain something to people, they are going to use their like knowledge and experience up to the point that you're telling them. Like, that's what they're going to use to interpret what you're telling them. I mean, that's like how communication works, basically. Like, you are given some kind of like input, which is the words that the other person is saying, and then you like interpret that yourself. So with things like identity, it can be difficult because you really don't know what the other person is going to, like, what their experience is, either themselves or with people around them, like what their experience is as far as their knowledge of other people's experiences. You just can't really predict that. And that makes it kind of hard because when you do talk to people and then it becomes clear that they don't understand, it can be really frustrating. Like, they might understand the concept, but it's just hard for them to like really grasp your experience, because they're trying to interpret it through this lens of what they already know. So for example, with being non-binary, this is a problem I've run into a bunch of times where I've tried to talk about it with people, and with me being assigned female at birth, when I try to talk about that I don't feel female, people will start saying stuff like, well, you don't really seem that masculine, or like, well, you weren't really into sports as a kid, or, but you liked dolls as a kid. It's like they understand, like, okay, you're not female, so you're not this thing, but then if you're not that, then you must be this. And they just don't really see like all of this around here that isn't this or this. And I'm saying that like that's not like meant as like a insult or like a criticism necessarily of people's difficulty with that. The difficulty comes from them being taught the gender binary their whole lives, just like all of us pretty much were. But it can present a problem when you're trying to communicate what your experience is because they just can't grasp it. And in some cases, people are kind of jerky about it and will just say, like, straight up, like, well, your experience doesn't fit into what I know, so therefore it doesn't exist, or therefore it's not real. But I'm not getting into those people right now. Those people do deserve a critique, but that's not what this video is about. I'm just trying to sort of express, like, what the difficulty is in trying to talk about things, because for me, like, and it's almost like, this, like, tug of war, because, like, on one hand, I feel this kind of pressure to, like, match what people expect my experience to be, so that I can, like, prove to them that this is really my experience. But then on the other hand, I don't really fit the narrative of what they might expect in a lot of ways. And so then I want to share that with them, but then at the same time, I'm, like, afraid if I do that, then they're not going to believe me, because they're going to use that to put me into this other box that they know of. This is kind of hard to say when I'm being sort of vague about, like, what I'm talking about, but, like, I don't even know what example to give right now, because I don't know what example I can give that would make sense to people without just confusing them. Sorry, this whole video is, like, probably really confusing, but I don't know. I guess I just kind of wanted to, like, touch on why it's taking me so long to make the videos that I want to make about my experience, because I feel like, I just feel like it's hard to explain things where people don't immediately try to resist what you're telling them, because it conflicts with what their experience is up to this point. So I really want to make those videos. Like, I really want to explain myself and where I'm coming from, and, like, what my experience is, first of all, just so people know me, but also because I want to challenge those ideas that people have. But I guess I just haven't really figured out the best way to do it. I don't know. I guess, like, if I want you to take anything away from this video, it's maybe just, like, when people tell you about their experiences or their identity or, like, their feelings or whatever, like, I think we as people have a tendency to try to see their experiences through our own, which, like I said, is kind of a natural thing to do. And in a way, it's a positive thing, because it kind of indicates that you're trying to connect with that person. You're trying to, like, put yourself in their position, like, in a sense of, like, understanding their feelings or understanding what they're going through in comparison to what you've gone through. But I feel like it's a good idea to try to be aware of the limits of that, and, like, kind of open yourself up to the possibility that your experience is not inclusive of everybody's experience. So, like, just try to stay open. Like, if somebody's telling you something about their experience and it just sounds, like, completely ridiculous to you, just, like, you can, like, acknowledge that in your head, like, acknowledge to yourself that it seems ridiculous. But first of all, don't express that to them. Like, that's just a jerk move. Don't do that. But even beyond that, like, for yourself, like, within yourself, try to like, set that aside a little bit and just, like, open your mind up, and just, like, forget that it sounds ridiculous, and try to, like, just accept, or, like, give the benefit of the doubt, like, accept that it could be true, that, like, what they're feeling or what their experience is, like, maybe that really is what they experience. Maybe you just haven't felt that, or you just haven't met anybody yet who felt that, and so it's new to you, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But I really think that in addition to being a compassionate and kind thing to do for the person who's telling you about their experience, it's good for yourself too, because you can never grow or expand if you come up against every new idea with resistance. Like, you have to be open to new ideas. You have to, like, acknowledge the possibility that you don't know everything yet. And that's been really good for me, personally, as far as my personal growth and stuff. And, like, I certainly have a lot of room to grow more from here, but I feel like that's kind of, like, a step that I've taken that's helped me a lot to understand other people's experiences and to not just discount them because they are new or different. So that was the moral of the story for today. But let me know in the comments if you guys have come up against this yourselves. You're trying to talk about your experiences, and how did that make you feel, and like, how did you deal with that? I'd also really appreciate your thumbs up on this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and I will see you guys in the next one.